Mercer head coach Mike Jacobs. I'm John Brice of footballscoop.com, and this is another edition of our Coaching Network podcast. Coach, off to a 5-0 start, first year at Mercer. You're a busy man, but you're somehow taking time out to join us here on the pod. We appreciate it, and congratulations on the early success.
Thanks, John. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I got to visit this summer. It was an enlightening conversation we had for 30 or 40 minutes, not just because we both share some deep connections to Ohio, but to hear your vision for the program. And obviously 5-0, that's about as good as you could wish for halfway through the season. What have you seen your team do on the field over this first few weeks of the season that you maybe thought it was possible or could do as you were in preseason camp in August?
Yeah, I think going into it, as you and I spoke back in the spring, we felt pretty strongly that we had a known commodity in our defense. I think we had as many as 8 returning starters, and not just starters, but a lot of guys that had been all conference and, played a bunch of football, guys that are in their 5th or extended year. And, we felt strongly about what they may be able to accomplish. I don't think in a million years I would have thought that they played as well as they have, at least from like a stats perspective, but they've been tremendous and have been a huge part of our success. I think that we knew there's going to be a little bit more turnover offensively, a bunch of new faces, not just the coaching staff, but substantial turnover just in terms of roster on the offensive side. But I think offense coordinator Anthony Soto has done a great job. Our staff getting those guys ready. We've revamped the offensive line a little bit to be a little bit more what we do offensively, and they've been playing pretty well. And I've been pleased with their development under Tyler Orlowski. And then I think really the other area that stood out for us the most has really been our special teams. Matt Ulrich's our special teams coordinator. He had been at Eastern Washington the past few years, but he's just done a fantastic job, and really both our kicking game and punting game have been huge weapons for us. We brought in a transfer, John McConnell from Marshall, who's just been fantastic. And you couple the good defense with long fields, and it can be a long day for folks.
You touched on defense there, and I want to dive into that in just a moment. But you're a big culture guy. We talked about that. We talked about the standards that you have in your program. So what have you seen? How quickly has this buy-in of the culture and the way you want your program operating? When did you first start to sense that, okay, these guys really get it? We're getting a good culture in place, a potential championship type culture in place.
Yeah, I think that when I got here, again, the unique thing about what I've been able to do or what I've been inherited here was a team that had good culture. Drew Cronick did a tremendous job here in getting this thing turned around a little bit since they brought back football. And this wasn't a rebuild, and I wasn't taking over a team that hadn't won many games. This was a team that had made it to the second round of the FCS playoffs. And so there was a lot of things that this team and these kids were already doing right. I give our administration a lot of credit and our senior leadership. We did not have a ton of attrition through the transfer portal throughout the coaching change. And so, you had a group of guys who have been on the cusp of being a conference champion. They got over the hump and made the playoffs last year. And so I think we came in with a naturally hungry team. And, I think we've just been able to continue to improve on what was already here and hold kids to a high standard and just demand that we have great practice habits. And I think those practice habits are showing up on Saturdays for us.
Once again, he is Mercer head coach Mike Jacobs. I'm John Brice of footballscoop.com here on the Our Coaching Network podcast. 5-0 start for the Mercer Bears, the best in 11 years since those early days of the reboot, I believe, under Bobby Lamb, that 5-0 start. But starting fast in programs is not anything new to you. You had phenomenal success at Notre Dame College, won 40-plus games in your first 4 years there before making the jump to Lenoir-Rhyne, which Cronick had been at it and turned into a very viable D2 force. You had tremendous success there, winning 13 games in a row there. What have you been able to apply and build with each stop that, and I know you hang your hat on defense, but maybe what are some of the intangibles that you apply to and help build at each stop?
Yeah, I've been really blessed, right? Like we all are a product of those that are around us. So I think it starts with staff consistency. I've a number of these guys that are with me have been with me anywhere from 6 to 9 years, all 9 years that I've been a head coach. Um, at this level, it's in the lower levels is really remarkable. And so that staff continuity, that staff consistency, I think we've done a really good job evaluating talent. Like you have to project kids. It's kind of the old school, you're not getting in D2, especially not at Notre Dame College when we were there. We weren't getting ready-made players. And so we had to be really thorough in our evaluation of guys. I think we've done a good job evaluating high school talent, projecting kids, whether it be at one position or a different one, and then developing them. And that's something that we continue to hang our hat on. And then just as far as like fast starts go, again, it's just uh, putting getting good kids who love football and then trying to put them in positions where they can play fast and not worry about making mistakes and just have a lot of fun on Saturdays.
I'm not going to ask you for any trade secrets here, but as a self-described football nerd, as I've gotten to speak with you and getting to know you a little bit over the last few months and watching your program, player development is a huge thing. So, and projecting players is a big thing. You get guys into your program and you develop them to the point you had a great running back at Lenore Ryan, who's now with you at Mercer.
Mm-hmm.
Again, without going too far into the weeds, how do you and your staff get into that projection? What are some of the things that you look at that you say, okay, I can see this trait in this kid, and it might take us 3 years to get it out of him, but when we do, he's going to be a really valuable member of our program.
Yeah, I think it's hard to quantify, right? Like we want good football players. Like some guys just kind of have it. Obviously, we're looking for all the intangible measurement stuff that a lot of people do, and we haven't been afraid to take. Our starting tackle Xavier Jennings is a guy that followed us here, and he didn't have a ton of offers coming out of high school, and we had taken him at Lenore Ryan. He goes in there, he starts 40 plus games. He was an All-American, and he's not your prototypical tackle because he's probably 6'2 3/4, but he had tremendous lower body strength and foot speed, and that's carried him. So just looking at body types, looking at flexibility, hip and ankle mobility, those kind of things, and then like our guys just football players. Some guys just have a knack. They won't jump off the charts with any of their statistical stuff, but they just continually are in the right position. They play with good leverage, whether it's offensive or defensively, and they have a knack for playing football, and I think that's what we've been successful with.
And your team's a hallmark, and this year's certainly no different. Your Mercer Bears already have 2 wins over ranked teams, Chattanooga and Wofford at the time. A couple of programs that have been really strong in recent years, especially Chattanooga, have been a force in the SoCon. Um, you're a former offensive lineman at Ohio State, but your teams hang their hat on defense, and you've coached on both sides of the ball. How much is that experience from playing on the offensive side of the ball to then coaching on both sides of the ball? How much has that maybe helped you in your football coaching journey?
I think when growing up, all I ever wanted to be was an offensive line coach. That's what my dad was, and my dad was a college coach forever, and that's what I played, and it's all I ever wanted to be. And then when I had an opportunity to switch sides of the ball, I went from coaching O-line for probably the first 7 years of my career, and then I had a job offer at California University of Pennsylvania at the time. They were coming off a Final Four run in Division II under John Luckhart, but the job offer was for defensive line and director of football operations. And I really think that, making that, one, I want to be a part of a winner. So it forced me to study and learn something new. It also, I really think, has set me up for success as a head coach. I think that it's invaluable to have experience, right? I played special teams in college because I was a long snapper. I coached offensive line. I've coached defensive line. I've been a defensive coordinator. And then as much as anything, running the football operations stuff when I was at California, PA, I think those are all things that have led to my success as a head coach is because I don't just call plays. I don't do that. It's kind of that big picture mentality, and I think that that's really carried over. And the everything's done with the details of stuff, and we spend a lot of time. Like the offensive line in me doesn't allow, like, we still have 30 plus minutes a day of individual at every position. It's not just the O-line, D-line guys stealing time during special teams. Like, I really believe in the basics of the game. And I really believe to get good at the basics, you have to have time to do that during practice. And so even in season, we're spending time on that. And I think that's carried over into good gameplay. We've tackled well, we've run the ball well, like all that stuff matters.
John Brice of footballscoop.com. He is Mike Jacobs, head coach of the 5-0 Mercer Bears here on the Our Coaching Network podcast. You touched just a moment ago on your father having a really distinguished coaching career, and he coached for Don Nehlen at West Virginia. He coached under John Cooper at Ohio State. What elements today do you have of your father in your program? What elements today do you have of both of those iconic former college football coaches?
Yeah, I think, man, I've been like weirdly blessed to be around some great people. I grew up and my dad was at West Virginia for 15 years under Don Nehlen. And you asked me about elements. When I became a head coach, I really felt like the biggest thing I had to do was create this family atmosphere. Like I remember, like, my parents were divorced, but like there was never a time where Coach Neal was like, no, you can't bring your kids to practice or to the facility. And, I still talk to a number of the coaches' kids that were around at West Virginia in that time because we grew up together. And like, it just always felt like this sense of family. And I never really have ever gotten off that. And so I've tried to really create that with my staff. And I think that's why we've had some carryover and consistency where a lot of people have not had that consistency amongst their coaches. So I think that family atmosphere is one, and that was from Don Nehlen. I think just, the putting the price tag on finding talented players, like you're never going to win games unless you got talented kids. And I don't know that anybody recruited better than John Cooper. And then just the really trying the human element of things from Coach Tressel, who I played for, and then Joe Tiller, I thought was another guy that I thought he was as good of anybody when I was a GA for him, and just projecting talent. You look at some of those guys, you look at a guy like Nick Hardwick, who was a walk-on at Purdue, and then, the guy ends up being a second or third round draft pick and playing 10 years in the league. And he's not the only story there. He's just the one that stands out the most. And Joe was so good at identifying talent and developing it. And I just think that, the combination of all those guys and just trying to be a sponge has really, really helped me in my career.
If I'm not mistaken, you finished playing in in 2001 or graduated right around that time, and within a year, you were already coaching at the Division I level at Eastern Michigan. How did that transpire so quickly? And can you believe sitting here today? Because I can't believe it, we're about the same age. I can't believe you've already been coaching close to 25 years, man.
Yeah, I got a little gray in my beard, right?
That's
Part
why
of
I'm
that's
wearing a
because I got
cap.
an 8-year-old. I got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. But no, you know what? I owe a lot to a guy by the name of Jim Bridge. Jim Bridge, my senior year at Ohio State, my 5th year, Tressel's first year, he brought in, this is before there was like age restrictions on graduate assistants. And Jim Bridge had been the full-time line coach, I think, at Bowling Green, and the staff had been let go. And so Coach Bridge came and was our graduate assistant my senior year. And shortly after we had played in the Outback Bowl that year, he had gotten hired at Eastern Michigan under Jeff Woodruff to be the offensive line coach. He knew I was a coach's kid. Coach Bridge had actually played at Wittenberg, where my dad and my uncle had played. And so there were some ties just kind of in general. And he knew I wanted to get into coaching. And, he gave me the opportunity that April. I went up and interviewed and was able to become the offensive graduate assistant there at Eastern Michigan. And seems like just yesterday, but when I think about it, like, hey, that was still times in the MAC where there was only one GA on each side of the ball, and we had to drive the film halfway to the next opponent, right? A lot of McDonald's meetups with other GAs in the MAC at the time to get the film exchanged.
You perfectly segued me into my next question. When we visit with coaches on the Our Coaching Network podcast, one of the things I really love doing is asking you guys maybe what are some weird jobs you had early on, or what are some weird tasks you had early on. And I think you probably just referenced a couple of them there from your time at Eastern Michigan. I bet you've got some fascinating stories from your time at Cal as well. So what are some of those stories when you think back, and now today you're head coach of the Mercer Bears, your program's 5-0, you've played football in your career at Ohio State, you've seen all these magical things. What are some of those moments in the early days where you're like, man, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm driving to drop off film?
Yeah, I mean, some of those like leaving early Sunday with a shoebox full of Super V's to trade out. Um, but I won't change any of that. I think the best thing for me, I grew up as a Division I coach, and I don't think I've ever had bad work ethic. But you go from a place like Ohio State that's very much a have and an elite level, and at the time Eastern Michigan was Division I, but not nearly the resources they've had now. Chris Creighton's done an unbelievable job there. Um, but man, I mean, I go right into, I'm vacuuming the team room, I'm putting table skirts on. I mean, just whatever needed to be done. But we had an unbelievable staff. Like Bob Diaco was on that staff, Mike Elston, Steve Farmer at one point, Tim Salem. I mean, Pete Alomar. There's guys that have gone on and had brilliant careers at the high FBS level, and I was just able to take it all in and learn a bunch. And I guess one that maybe stick like I've never been afraid to do anything. Like when you're at the lower levels, you got to kind of do it all. And again, some of those ops roles, like, I mean, I planned travel up until I got here at Mercer. So I mean, I've done everything. I can think of a time at Notre Dame College where, you know, we had to go pick up the Dollar General down the street. We had to go pick up the Gatorade. They wouldn't deliver it because they couldn't get the truck in or something. And so, we got these, they didn't have pallets, so we're just stacking all these crates, and I'm driving a pickup truck with a trailer, and this wall of Powerade goes over, and it's like rolling down the street. And I'm the head coach of a top 5 team, and I'm out in the middle of the road picking up Gatorades that had dumped over. So like just, I mean, you name it, man. We've seen it, and that's what I think that I don't really get rattled by much, right? Because like you just
Yeah.
kind of go to work. Like no's never an answer. You just kind of figure out a way to do it with whatever resources you have.
Man, that's an awesome one. I can't thank you enough for sharing that. We've had some cool ones on here. Some guys stocking groceries overnight. My buddy Carlos Lachlan, who's now the running backs coach at your alma mater, was a prison guard when he was first getting started out there in Memphis. But a Powerade Gatorade traffic jam is a new one. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We're about to wrap it up here with Mike Jacobs, head coach of the 5-0 Mercer Bears. Again, I'm John Brice of footballscoop.com on the Our Coaching Network podcast. So winding it to an end here, you guys are 5-0. You have Princeton this weekend. First of all, how did Princeton pop up on your schedule? There's not a lot of Ivy League teams venturing to play Mercer, so I'm fascinated by that. And then just what are the keys for your team moving forward now?
Yeah, the Princeton game is really unique because, as you mentioned, right, not often do the Ivy League teams kind of venture out of that Ivy Patriot League. That's a pretty tight-knit community. I know this is something that our president and our athletic director had been working on, obviously, way before I got here. For people outside of the Southeast region, like Mercer's high academic. Like, I don't claim that we're an Ivy League school, but our kids, we're not just taking regular old classes. They come and they got to go to work every day academically. And so, playing a school with the academic prestige as Princeton was something that was important to our president and certainly our campus community. And again, I mean, Princeton played in the very first college football game, right? So it's kind of cool history. The other bit of trivia, Princeton one Heisman Trophy winner, Dick Kazmaier. We went to the same high school, Maumee High School, the Panthers. So it's a little bit of trivia for those folks going into the game this weekend. But cool opportunity to play an Ivy League school. As far as the season goes, man, like, we're coming up into the meat of the schedule. We have, this month of October will tell us a lot about who we really are as a program. We are beyond blessed for how we've played. The first segment, the bye week kind of came at the perfect time for us. But, you're looking at Princeton, who's won the Ivy League a bunch the last 5 years. You're looking at, a really good Western Carolina and ETSU team, Samford. The meat of our schedule is really, really coming up in the next 3-4 weeks. And so we got to stay the course. We got to get better daily, kind of all the cliche stuff, but that's really it. We're playing good football and our kids are having fun. So it's been a good ride so far.
Yeah, Bob Serace does an incredible job at Princeton, and they've had tremendous success, even as he's lost some top assistants to other positions in recent years. That's going to be fascinating to see that. Completely last question here, Coach, and that it's more big picture. And you've seen it from both sides, from being a D1 coach, from being a D1 player at one of the most tradition-rich programs in all of college football. Where do you see the future of FCS football going in the next few years? The portal has been undeniably a big impact, positive and negative. NIL continues to be more prevalent at the FCS level. So just from a big picture standpoint, because you're a football lifer, where do you see your sport going in the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, it's completely speculative, right? Like, I think that I think at some point that Power Five, that group of 70 or so schools, just from a monetary standpoint, and the profit sharing and all of that, I think at some point we'll see them separate. I don't know
Mhm.
what it'll do to the rest of us. I don't know if us high-end FCS schools will come together with some of the
Right.
group of fives and there's something new in the middle there. I don't know. I know we want to be on the front end and not on the back end. Our administration's done a great job with NIL and allowing us to be competitive in that market, to attract kids. And so we're just going to keep plugging away. I think it's important. I think the AFCA has done a good job and kind of communicating all that stuff. And we'll see. It changes by the day. It seems like right now I'm waiting for the recruiting calendar just to stabilize instead of change every 6 months. So we'll see what happens. But if it can provide, continue to provide good opportunities for high school players, because I still think that's the most important aspect, as well as providing kids an opportunity to change their situation if it's not going well through the portal, and it provides us an opportunity to continue to affect folks positively, then it's all going to be for the good. But yeah, I see a separation at some point, and again, that's just my opinion. No inside info on that.
No, but your perspective is so valuable, and that's why I asked you, and I appreciate your candor in that. You dropped some trivia a moment ago. I'm going to drop some trivia about you for our listeners. 7 previous years as a head coach, Mike Jacobs has never had a team win fewer than 8 games. First year now at Mercer, already 5-0. That doesn't happen by accident. That's remarkable consistency and success. Coach, congratulations to you. Only halfway home. I'm not giving you too much of a congratulations yet. But off to a heck of a start there at Mercer, and generous with your time this morning with us on the Our Coaching Network podcast. Again, he's Mike Jacobs of Mercer. I'm John Brice of Football Scoop. Coach, thanks so much. Best of luck the rest of the way.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you covering other stuff too, and certainly FCS football. So thank you.